daily. We are just less than 48 hours away from the Iowa caucuses. And I said I wouldn't make any more Iowa videos after my prediction the other day, but I decided I wanted to make one more because in the last hour or so, we got a poll from NBC News and the Des Moines Register that gave us a final look of what the ground looks like ahead of the Iowa caucuses on Monday night. And this is run by Ann Seltzer, who is a name in the game. She is one of the best pollsters for Iowa pollsters out there. I have followed her polling and her methodology. She is really one of the best pollsters, and she has a really good idea of what goes on the ground in Iowa. So I'm really happy that of all the data we could have been getting in the last few moments and days of this primary, that it was this poll that came out, because this is the final poll that we're getting in the Iowa caucuses. And actually, it's the last Iowa caucus poll that we're going to be getting for the next 4 years, which is crazy. But yes, that is where we're at right now. So this is exciting stuff. We are just, again, less than 48 hours away from the all-important make or break Iowa caucuses. In terms of results that came out on this race, it's nothing major and it's nothing crazy. We know what it's generally looked like all the numbers we've been talking about. It's nothing groundbreaking. Like, Donald Trump is in the lead. He's leading by huge margins. It's nothing crazy, but there have been a few tweaks in the numbers. And those little tweaks that we've seen, that's the stuff I want to talk about. And that's the stuff I find a little interesting. So if we were to just look at this part of the poll that's talking about how likely people are going to be attending this caucus, 55% are saying they're definitely going to attend. 45% say they'll probably attend. Mind you, this was not done in recent days. If you're from the Midwest, you know that the weather out here is crazy. I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Illinois. So the weather that we've been getting is kind of similar to Iowa, but not as bad. But it is cold. It is cold. It is snowy. It is icy. And to turn out to vote in these types of conditions is not actually something people are all too crazy about, if you could imagine. But it's definitely not ideal conditions for voting. And it's so cold. It is so cold for people to be turning out, especially among old voters, the types of voters that we usually see voting in these primaries and caucuses. It's not that likely. And they're saying it's the coldest Iowa caucuses on record. So how likely are people going to turn out to vote? That's to be seen. I would expect turnout to be a little lower. Not as high as it usually might be because of that temperature. But again, 55% is not bad, and 45% not bad for probably. Even best case scenario, we have 55% people there. But it's not bad. So if we are looking at the actual numbers from the poll, you can see Donald Trump by far and ahead at 48%, leading the whole pack. Next place is Nikki Haley by 28 points. So Trump is doing really well for himself right now. Not a huge change. It's nothing crazy. 12% for second choice, actively being considered by 7. So his total footprint is around 67%. Commands this field by a lot. He is not at all waging some sort of weird, shadow campaign. Like, this has been common and visible and evident for the longest time. No one is surprised by this. What I am going to talk about, what I think is of note, is the race for second place. And that's between Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. That's the race that I've been watching in New Hampshire and nationally for the last few weeks, and now, I guess months now. It's been between these two. It's just, I never thought that it would be in Iowa. I never thought that it would be an issue in Iowa. Because right now, Ron DeSantis is struggling. He is at 16% to Nikki Haley's 20%. And we'll talk about the change from the last time this poll was done in a moment. And then I want to talk about Vivek Ramaswamy, 8%. And while this poll came in the last hour, in the last 1 hour or 2 hours, there's been a huge public fight going on between Vivek Ramaswamy and Donald Trump. They are not tight anymore, I guess. Vivek Ramaswamy posted a shirt saying, "Save Trump, vote Vivek," and kind of just going around after him. And Trump, I guess his feelings got hurt and was upset by what Vivek was doing. So he posted a truth social, whatever it is, on Twitter or something. And he's been going after Vivek, saying, Vivek was like all this great guy. Now he's just a fraud. He's a phony. So while Vivek has been doing well, and this is definitely better than what I would have expected for him, this is nothing that's certain anymore. I don't think Vivek's supporters are diehard supporters for Vivek, because they're all Trump supporters in the end. They all love Donald Trump. And if Donald Trump turns on Vivek, that's it. That's that's the end of Vivek Ramaswamy. And I think we're seeing that happen. Vivek had a chance to leave this race without, having a lot of mud thrown in his face, but he didn't drop out, and now he's paying the consequences for it. But that's okay. It's fun for us here, and it's fun for us political observers to watch. But if we go into some of the details of this race, so we're looking at Donald Trump. Donald Trump, he's at 51%, now 48%. He lost some ground, nothing major, 42, 43, 51, 48. It's 3 points. It's nothing major. He is still leading ahead of everybody. But that 3 points does put him sub 50. He's not at 50% anymore. And so therefore he does not have a majority. And with all the expectations going in, and I know this is being very nitpicky right now, but going in, we would have thought that 50% are totally backing Trump. But that's neither here nor there. Like, this is 3%. It's nothing huge. Where I do think is notable is for our race for second place again. I said Ron DeSantis lost support. He went from 19% to 16%. That's a 3-point drop. That's disappointing, because ideally, this was supposed to be his second place chance. Like, this is where he was supposed to be shining. Evangelical right-wing voters are from Iowa. You stand with them, and they're the good ones. Like, they're the ones that are supposed to back DeSantis, not Trump. Yet somehow he's in third place, and Nikki Haley is at 20. And this is not the way. If you look at Ron DeSantis's pattern, 1916, that's a nice pattern to have if there was room for one more 19 right before caucus night. So this pattern is not good for him. Like, with this many days left hours left until the caucus, this is not a good number to have, because DeSantis put all his money, all his effort, all his efforts, everything into Iowa. He doesn't have a plan B. He did not put effort into New Hampshire. He's polling at 5%. He doesn't have a plan in South Carolina, and he doesn't have a plan anywhere else. He doesn't have the apparatus set up. He put everything into Iowa. His campaign is in shambles, actually, right now, and they're not able to organize. So 16% is sad to see DeSantis at that point, because he doesn't have anywhere else to go. So and they were saying that there are 2 tickets coming out of Iowa. I know I said there were 3 tickets coming out of Iowa, but after some more thought and from reports that I've been hearing now, there's only 2 tickets coming out of Iowa. There is no room for third place, because think about it. It's 48% and 20%. That's 70%. There's only 30% left to divide among the rest of them. There is no room for third place in this campaign. It's second place. You have to get second place if you want to be viable. And so with DeSantis not there, if this is what his numbers are going to look like on caucus night, and Ann Seltzer is very accurate. She's good at predicting stuff. Like, her numbers usually come pretty close. If DeSantis is going to get 16% in the poll, then it seems like we might be talking about DeSantis dropping out. It's very much a possibility, because then he's not viable. He doesn't have this opportunity. He doesn't have a chance to go forward. It's just not possible for him. He stakes so much on Iowa, and to have a disappointing finish, like he's saying, oh, I'm going to do so great. I'm going to come within 10 points of Donald Trump at a minimum. That's the goal. I mean, come on, man. You're 1/3 at where he's at. It's not going to happen. He's not going to come in within 10 points. It's just not going to happen. Now, that second place spot, it could be lost, or the numbers might not be good. Who knows? Maybe DeSantis is sitting at a second place. But the numbers right now that we're seeing, They don't show a good number. If we just look at the polling averages coming out of Iowa, he is polling at 15.6% on average to Nikki Haley's 18.2%. He's the third place candidate on average as well. He's dropped. And that's the issue that DeSantis now has. Because if there's no room for third place, if he gets a third place finish, it's game over for him. He's cooked. He's done. And I think that's why this poll is not making him feel comfortable. But you know who is feeling comfortable? Nikki Haley. Her campaign is saying that this is a good poll for her. This is good news. This is welcomed, and this is great. Because it's true. That 20% that she's getting, it's not at all bad. It's pretty good for her because while DeSantis has put everything he's got in Iowa with no plan B, Nikki Haley's been very frugal with her money, but she's put the most of her resources into New Hampshire. And being frugal with those resources, I think, has been actually really smart. She saved the most for the end. And that's how she was able to do this huge blitz of ads and other campaign expenditures in the last week in Iowa. This past week, she spent the most money. There have been the most attack ads out on her, but she's also spent the most money to put her name out there. And she's been registering in people's heads. And I think that's why this 20% is coming about. She has not put that much effort in Iowa. If you watch the news, if you follow her campaign even, New Hampshire is what it's been all about. She got the endorsement of the governor there. She's been getting the support on the ground. She's been polling ahead. And that's where she's been most of the time. Iowa is just the last 2 weeks or so. Nothing crazy. Like, she hasn't gone all in. And that's the thing for Nikki Haley. She played this really smart, unlike DeSantis. DeSantis did not play this smart. He put everything he got into Iowa and still couldn't come out on top, whereas Nikki Haley did not put nearly as much into Iowa, and she's in second place. And that's the thing. I think it's also, she's a really skilled politician. She's good at politics. Like, I was just listening to a report that was coming out that was talking about how she is able to she's able to use the same exact stump speech that sounds so politician-y, yet make it sound so personal for every voter. It's the same speech, and I've heard her give the same speech so many times that I've memorized it. Like, it's in my head. Same thing for DeSantis, although DeSantis likes to change things up. So Nikki Haley has this skill, and it's not just anything on DeSantis. He's not good at it. But if we look at the polling averages out of New Hampshire, 29.3%, that is clearly, she's the second place candidate there. That is clearly where she puts her effort. And I think this is good news. If she's not putting in this much effort into Iowa, about 20% of Iowa's general voter base is independent. And I think this is exactly where she's drawing her support from. If you look at the total losses, DeSantis lost 3 points, Trump lost 3 points, 6 points are up for grabs. Vivek Ramaswamy grabbed 3 points. Nikki Haley grabbed 4 points. I think the remaining support that we're seeing in that deficit is coming from Kristi supporters. That Kristi support is lightly shimmying around here and there into Nikki Haley. And I think that's what was expected. Kristi supporters go to Nikki Haley. And that's because of anti-Trump voters. The thing is with anti-Trump voters is they don't really care who the anti-Trump candidate is as long as it's not going to Trump, right? That's the thing. And Nikki Haley has been winning the same type of voter as Chris Christie, anti-Trump, moderate, independent-ish voters. And that's where Nikki Haley has been performing really well. Whereas Ron DeSantis has tried to market himself as this, strong, tough guy that's going to go fight for the conservative base, be the real true family values guy, win over evangelical voters. Yet it's not working. Trump is running away with all of them. They're all backing him. And they didn't back him in these types of numbers in 2016. Trump is nearly doubling, and in some cases with some groups, tripling his support. He is taking away what DeSantis has. They were right. A lot of voters said that this is not DeSantis's time. He doesn't have he doesn't have the support or the momentum. He shouldn't be doing this right now. He should just go and drop out and run in 2028. They were right. He did not have a place in this race. With Donald Trump, he could have run. He could have run sooner. He could have run in January, February, March, or April when he had the good press, when he had the good skills, when he had the good, when the media was loving him. There was a point in time where DeSantis was polling really close to Donald Trump within that 10 points that he was talking about that he needs in Iowa. Now he isn't. If he would have done it then, I think he could have actually made it work, and we might have been looking at very different numbers right now. But a poor strategic error, which was that he insisted on campaigning after the Florida legislature session or whatever legislative session, came to harm him. He was not able to capitalize on the good support that he was having. So it's unfortunate for Ron DeSantis, but I think if this is what the numbers are looking like for him, either he's going to shamefully continue into New Hampshire or he's going to drop out. And he is politician enough to know that he doesn't have a bright career ahead of him for turning on Trump like this. And maybe I'm writing him off and I'll eat my words in a few years. But the way it looks, the way Trump is like single-handedly about to like cancel his support for Vivek Ramaswamy, it's already happened to DeSantis. It's just imploded in a larger volume for DeSantis. Anyway, looking at how this affects the primary in general, again, Donald Trump is at 50%, leading by 30 points. No one's in striking distance. But the thing with the Nikki Haley 20% thing is because this was never in the plan for her, this is good news. The 20%, her initial strategy was she does really well in New Hampshire, comes within striking distance of Trump in New Hampshire. Think about all this Christie support that can go to Haley now. Oh, wow, that's a lot of support that can go. So her idea is if she can come within striking distance of Trump, that'll propel her onto the national stage because the next primary is in South Carolina, not for another month. I mean, we have the Nevada caucus, but there's some issues going on there, and she's not actually a candidate there. Anyway, with Christie's support shifting over to her, she actually has a huge influx of support coming in. And that might set her up well for New Hampshire, which can then help her in South Carolina. And then she can, take off. And by then, maybe DeSantis is out. And that can kind of help her. But I don't think this was in the plan for her, 20% in Iowa. I think this is a double boost. This is a good double boost going into New Hampshire that can then propel her even further if she does it right. The path to Haley winning the nomination is still extremely narrow. But between Christie dropping out and this Iowa poll, I think it actually looks really good for her. Like, this is a good, comfortable position to be in because all the dominoes are falling into the right place because slowly but surely the conditions for Haley to become a strong competitor are beginning to come into line. And slowly but surely she is coming and edging towards Trump. And that's where I think she can hit it out of the park. 29%. Plus 11% is at 40%. Trump is at 43%. DeSantis is at 5%. Negligible. Ramaswamy at 5%. Again, that could also end up being 5% up for grabs. But, Nikki Haley has a bright-ish future. Mind you, those are all independent and Democrat voters that are turning out for her, and there isn't a huge market in other Republican states for this. But the idea is if enough voters that are iffy about Trump, because they usually say 25% are pro-Trump no matter what, going to go in the snow, going to go over the coals for him, 50% are iffy about him, 25% are not for him at all. Of course, what we see in this primary is going to show what those numbers actually are. But if she can, what her idea and what I'm guessing her thinking is if she can establish herself as not just a second place candidate, but a strong second place candidate, then she can start winning over some of those iffy voters and then overwhelm Trump in that way, in that fashion. So that's what these numbers are looking like. I just want to make one quick comment about how likely they are and how persuadable these voters are. For Trump supporters, it's 82% their mind is made up, like no changing their minds. These are the types of people that are going to walk over coals for Donald Trump. They will do anything for Donald Trump. And that's just because they're diehard supporters of his. Good for them. Like they back one specific person. It's just they'll do anything for him. And like I said, in these incredibly freezing temperatures, we're looking at -40, -50 with wind chill in Iowa. And we're looking at -20 here where I'm at, but -50, that's crazy in Iowa. And to turn out to vote, generally older voters at that. So 82% of those supporters, their mind is made up and they're not convincible. And that shows a strong base that can turn out for him. With DeSantis and Haley, they are polling relatively similar. Mind is made up 64-63, so relatively similar. They're going to not be as strong in their support for Haley and DeSantis, but they'll still turn out. A lot of them will turn out. Some could be persuaded. I don't know where Haley voters are actually supposed to go, because I would have thought that they go to like Christie or they maybe go to DeSantis, but DeSantis voters almost certainly will go to Trump. Some will go to Haley, the ones that are very anti-Trump or voting against Donald Trump or feel like we need to move on from Trump. They'll go to Haley, but a lot of them are going to Donald Trump. So that's the thing about people who are going to turn out in this weather. Who would have thought that the weather is going to play such a big role? It's the coldest Iowa caucus on record. It's in history, like the coldest ever, freezing. So that's what it's looking like there. In terms of other things that we're getting from this poll, in terms of enthusiasm, 9% for Haley. This is the one hiccup that I think is going to bother her a lot, where only 39% of her supporters are very enthusiastic or extremely enthusiastic for her. Trump, that's about 90%. If I'm doing my math right, 50, 40, 90, that's 90% that are enthusiastic enough, like very and extremely. DeSantis, could be better, 65% about, like that could be better, but it's not bad. It's still better than the 39% that Haley musters. So if she can just, and again, that's why I'm saying there are a lot of things that need to happen for Haley to have a comfortable, path to the nomination. But if she can hold on to the strings the way she is right now, that she could still command the support as well as the votes that she needs to propel herself into a comfortable second place victory. And other points on this poll that I thought are kind of interesting is that Haley is convincing a lot of voters. DeSantis and Trump supporters have stayed with him for the most part. They've always been with them. Nikki Haley has not had that type of support. So she is convincing people. I'm guessing, again, some of these people are Christie voters that have lost a home and now need a new candidate to turn to. And anything else that I think is worth noting is, again, not much. The favorability ratings is nothing that I don't think favorability is something that I care about too much because it's not indicative of support. Support is driven mainly by just who you're going to cast your ballot for. This is just whether or not you like them. Like, do you like their personality? Do you like how they do? Blah, blah, blah. Things like that. It's nothing crazy. It's nothing that's going to change stuff. But I don't think there is much else with this vote. So looking at this, looking at where this poll stands and how this changes things, the conclusions that we get going into caucus night is Trump is up and ahead, very much leading. Nikki Haley is now the second place candidate in Iowa. Not in the plan, but welcomed. DeSantis is flailing at third place now. And the others are the others. So that's where we're at. If we were to just make a proportional, if we were just to look at Iowa, this is just from when I was doing this last time, from our Monday video. But what I was just saying is if we were to theoretically just look at how this is going to apportion itself based on the numbers we got, if we gave 48% to Donald Trump, I don't know if we'll give him 47.5. Nikki Haley gets 20% of the vote. DeSantis is going to get his 16%. We're going to give him 15 just to make it even. Ramaswamy, I think, had 8% support. We're going to give him 7.5%. And then with these remaining 4 delegates, I would give DeSantis the boost because he needs it. And I don't think Ramaswamy gets much. I think Trump will take the rest of this cake. And that's where I think this is what we're going to look like coming out of Monday night. delegates for Haley. DeSantis gets 7, Ramaswamy 3, Donald Trump at the commanding and strong 22. Not even all of them combined could take that out. But that's where we're looking at, and that's what this vote is going to look like. But that does it for us for this special Ishan S Show Daily. We're going to see if we make another video tomorrow, but tune in. I think I'm going to do something live for the Iowa caucuses. I'm excited to do something and to see how this turns out. We're going to be keeping a close eye on the numbers, so keep following us. Subscribe to the Political News Blog, subscribe to the channel, check out the IshanSshow.com, follow us on social media. I'll link it all in the description. And just continue to keep viewing. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for coming on, guys. Bye-bye.